The water was still that morning, a sheet of silver stretched across the mile-wide river, disturbed only by the low groan of the old ferry's engines. On the beach, shaded by towering pines and a thin veil of fog, 5 college seniors stepped out of a dusty red Jeep Cherokee, all laughing a little too loudly, high on the buzz of freedom. "Last summer ever," Jamie said, grinning. She adjusted her sunglasses and tossed a duffel bag onto the sand. The group, Jamie, Marco, Danny, Tyler, and Lex. They'd all grown up in the sleepy town of Bridge Hollow, nestled between forest and river. Now, fresh off graduation, they'd come back for one final hurrah, a month of partying, camping, and dodging the real world. The arcade by the ferry hadn't changed. Rusted neon lights buzzed in the daylight, and the same greasy claw machine still refused to give up its prize. Across the river, the other side shimmered like a mirror. No one remembered who first said something was off. It just sort of happened, like fog creeping in without a sound. As the group made their way towards the arcade, they felt the strange sensation that the world was holding its breath. The air was heavier than it should have been, thick with salt and something darker. "I swear the fog's getting worse," Marco muttered, glancing over to Danny. Danny squinted into the mist. "It's like it's coming from the other side, from the river." "I've never seen it this thick," Tyler said. "Not in the middle of the day." The others nodded in agreement. It was unnerving, to say the least. Still, they walked on, the gravel crunching beneath their boots. As they neared the arcade, Lex spotted something odd. A figure by the ferry dock. Too still. Too perfectly still. It was a man. Tall and lean, his back turned to them, his silhouette blurred by the fog. "Hey, you guys see that?" Lex asked, pointing. The figure didn't move, not even when the group called out to him. It felt wrong, like he didn't belong there. "Maybe he's just a guy waiting for the ferry," Marco said, though his voice lacked confidence. Jamie stepped forward, her curiosity getting the better of her. "Hello? Are you okay?" she called. The figure slowly turned around. His face was obscured by the mist, but his posture, his eyes, those eyes seemed too wide, too calm. Didn't say anything. Instead, he just stood there, staring. His lips parted slightly, almost as if he was about to speak. But then, a strange screech echoed from across the river, piercing the quiet like a knife. Everyone froze. "What the hell was that?" Tyler whispered, eyes wide. The figure in the fog smiled. It wasn't a real smile. It was wrong. Too wide, too sharp. And just like that, he vanished into the mist. The group was left standing there, silent and uncertain. The ferry engines now roaring in the distance as if it, too, had noticed something wrong. A heavy silence hung over the group as they stood there, their eyes searching the fog where the figure had disappeared. "What the hell just happened?" Lex muttered, his voice shaky. "I don't know," Jamie said, her voice tight. "Maybe it was just some weirdo, a prank." Marco, who had been staring at the spot where the figure vanished, shook his head. "No way. That was something else." Danny, glancing over at the ferry now docked on the other side of the river. The boat was empty save for the driver, who was staring at them with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "We need to get out of here," Tyler said, his voice urgent. But before anyone could react, the screeching sound came again, closer this time, a long, drawn-out shriek that sent chills down their spines. From the fog, something moved. It was fast, like a shadow darting through the mist. It was coming toward them. Run! Marco shouted, turning on his heels. Without thinking, the group bolted. The sand under their feet felt heavy as they sprinted toward the arcade, the sounds of footsteps in the fog blending with the eerie cry of whatever was hunting them. They ran without looking back. The arcade lights flickered in the distance, promising safety but feeling like a distant illusion. The mist swirled around them, thick and choking, like it was trying to swallow them whole. Their feet pounding the gravel, the sound of their breath loud in their ears. "Keep running," Jamie yelled, her voice strained. "We're almost there." But no matter how fast they ran, the fog seemed to close in around them. And the sound of someone following grew louder. It wasn't just footsteps, it was something else, something wrong. Danny glanced over her shoulder, just as the shadow loomed in the mist, moving in unnatural jerks, like it was being pulled by strings. "Lex, move!" Danny screamed. Lex didn't need to be told twice. She pushed forward with all her strength, the arcade now in sight. But as they neared the entrance, the figure emerged fully from the fog. Its face was blank, like a mannequin's, with hollow, unblinking eyes. Before they could react, the figure let out another scream, this time so close it felt like it was inside their heads. They all dropped to the ground, clutching their ears. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the figure stopped, dead still. The fog began to recede, just a little, but it wasn't over, not yet. The group lay there, on the cold gravel, heartbeats thundering in their chests, the air thick with tension. For a long moment, no one moved. The figure, now motionless in the fog, seemed to be watching them. It wasn't a person. It couldn't be. It was something else. Something that mimicked people. Something that wore their faces like a mask. Jamie's voice broke the silence. "Did it just stop?" Lex, trembling, nodded. I think it's waiting for us to move." Tyler, ever the skeptic, was the first to push himself to his feet, his eyes never leaving the figure. "We need to get outside, now." Marco grabbed Danny's arm, pulling her up. "We've got to make it to the ferry. It's our only chance." With no more words, they surged toward the arcade, the door swinging open just as the figure's face, a face that wasn't anyone they knew, shifted, its mouth opening wide in a grin that wasn't human. It was too close now. The creature had already learned their names, their faces. It was waiting for them to slip up. And that, more than anything, terrified them. Inside the arcade, the group froze. The lights flickered once more, casting dark shadows over the rows of games. A sense of dread settled over them, heavier than before. They weren't safe. Not yet. The arcade was eerily quiet. The buzzing of the old machines replaced by an oppressive stillness. The only sound was their breath, ragged and uneven, as they pressed themselves against the nearest wall, trying to stay out of sight. "Where did it go?" Lex whispered, eyes darting around the room. The place hadn't changed in years. The same faded posters, the same sticky floors, but it felt wrong now, like it wasn't really here. "We don't know," Marco replied, his voice tight, "but we need to plan, and fast." Tyler scanned the room, his gaze lingering on the door to the ferry dock. "There's only one way out," he said. "Out the back, through the service door." But as they moved toward the back, the familiar sound of a game starting up, a high-pitched jingle, echoed through the room. It wasn't one of them. It was the creature, its fingers working the joystick as it hunched over the arcade machine. The creature didn't need to imitate them anymore. It knew their moves, their fears, and worse, it was learning. The screen flickered as the creature stared into the game, its face still twisted, stretched too far across the skull. It wasn't playing, it was testing them. Jamie took a step forward, her voice barely a whisper. "We can't stay here." With a surge of energy, they darted to the service door, the sound of the arcade machine's music blaring in their ears. But the moment they crossed the threshold, a high-pitched scream followed them, a sound that rattled their bones. They didn't look back. The door slammed shut behind them, the sound of the creature's scream still ringing in their ears. They were out of the arcade, but the fog had thickened even more, now swallowing the path to the ferry. "We can't outrun it," Marco said, his voice low, his hand on the door to the ferry. "It's like it's everywhere." "We have to fight," Tyler said, the fear in his eyes replaced with resolve. "We can't let it take us." Jamie looked at the ferry, the lone figure of the driver still standing by the wheelhouse, watching them without blinking. "We're not going to make it," Danny said, her voice breaking, but they had no choice. It was now or never. With one last push, they rushed toward the ferry, the driver's face still fixed on them. But when they reached the dock, they stopped short. The figure on the boat wasn't the same. It was an imitation. It had copied the driver's face, and something was wrong. The eyes were too wide, the skin too smooth, like porcelain. The creature had already found its way onto the ferry. It had been waiting for them. And then, in a single swift motion, the creature lunged. But this time they were ready. This time they fought back. Screaming, running, grabbing whatever they could, they fought, desperate and fueled by sheer adrenaline. The ferry rocked, the sound of its engines fading as the group stumbled to safety, leaving the nightmare behind them, but knowing deep down that they weren't truly free. The river had a way of holding on to its secrets, and it wasn't done with them yet. The boat drifted across the fog-choked river. The group huddled in silence. No one spoke. No one dared to ask what just happened. They docked on the far side. "We're safe now," Jamie said, though her voice cracked. Danny looked around. "Where's Marco?" They froze. He wasn't on the ferry. They turned in unison and saw him standing on the dock ahead, dry clothes, calm smile, waving them forward. "Hey," he called. "You guys coming?" But Marco hadn't gotten on the boat. He was behind them when they ran. He screamed when that thing lunged. The Marco on the dock smiled wider. "Everything's okay now. Come on." The group didn't move. They didn't answer. They just stood there as the fog slowly closed in around the shore again. The boat drifted across the fog-choked river, and the thing that wore Marco's face waited patiently. This was the scary story, River's Edge. Remember to stay spooky, my friends.